first on the firing of the CDC director. First,
Sure.
who will replace her? And then also, overnight, the White House said that she did not align with the president's agenda. Dr. Menard's attorneys say that she refused to rubber stamp unscientific, reckless directives and fired dedicated health experts. What specifically did she do wrong?
Look, what I will say about this individual is that her lawyer's statement made it abundantly clear themselves that she was not aligned with the president's mission to make America healthy again. And the secretary asked her to resign. She said she would, and then she said she wouldn't, so the president fired her, which he has every right to do. It was President Trump who was overwhelmingly reelected on November 5th. This woman has never received a vote in her life, and the president has the authority to fire those who are not aligned with his mission. A new replacement will be announced by either the president or the secretary very soon. And the president and Secretary Kennedy are committed to restoring trust and transparency and credibility to the CDC by ensuring their leadership and their decisions are more public-facing, more accountable, strengthening our public health system, and restoring it to its core mission of protecting Americans from communicable diseases, investing in innovation to prevent, detect, and respond to future threats. That's the mission of the CDC, and we're going to make sure that folks that are in positions of leadership there are aligned with that mission.
Thanks so much, Caroline. Back on the CDC, there was reporting that some of the initial problems between RFK and the CDC director stemmed from miscommunications or differences on vaccine policy. So I wonder if you could just say whether or not the president believes that the COVID vaccine should be available to and covered by insurance for all Americans, regardless of age and pre-existing conditions.
What I will tell you is that the FDA recently revoked the emergency use authorizations for 3 COVID vaccinations while simultaneously greenlighting 4 new COVID-19 vaccines with 2025 and 2026 formulas. The reason for the revocation of that emergency use authorization is because obviously the COVID pandemic and the public health emergency is over. But just to correct the record, because there's been a lot of misinformation on this, the FDA's decision does not affect the availability of COVID vaccines for Americans who want them. We believe in individual choice. That's a promise both the president and the secretary have made, and it's a promise they have now delivered on.
As you saw from the intro, the media thought they had a chance to finally smear and decompose Robert F. Kennedy and Trump's agenda to make America healthy again. Make America healthy again. This is kind of a sub part of the Make America Great Again movement. I thoroughly enjoy this one because for so long, trust in medical institution has been waning because the medical institutions have been wrong on numerous things. As you saw from the intro, Caroline Levitt mentioned that the FDA revoked this power that they used to have to be able to, I guess, mandate vaccines or something like that, or authorize the use of vaccines, and they just discontinued that. And this Susie Menard's firing and their attempts to try to paint it as reckless. And I want to show you some of the backstory of some of the people that are resigning. The left is trying to turn this into something like, oh my God, there's no trust in the leadership. Obviously try to frame this as negative, but I see the firing as a good thing because when you get let's say you took over a business and the business has been failing to meet expectations. What's the first thing you do? What's the first thing that happens if you've ever been an employee at any kind of job? They clean up management. They fire old management because they believe the management is stuck in their ways and their current system is not producing a good result. The CDC, if you're looking at it from that standpoint, what Robert F. Kennedy is doing is actually a good thing because he's trying to put fresh blood in there. And you don't have to hear it from mine. Hear it from his actual response. Here's some of the reasons why RFK decided to fire her. And we'll go more into depths on this thing. But the left's attempt to try to pretend that this agency had any legitimacy still left. And this is the problem they have with the mainstream media. They keep saying, oh my God, they're firing experts. Oh, it's because they didn't want to go with RFK's vaccine propaganda. You gave us vaccine propaganda. Remember what you said about the COVID vaccine? You said it was give us immunity. You said it was better than natural immunity. This is the propaganda you guys were spewing, and you rubber stamped it and you thought it was good science. 6 feet apart, mask helps. And then 2 years later, not even 2 years, weeks later, people realize 76 feet apart won't work. These vaccines don't make you immune of COVID. And this is the propaganda you were feeding us. And now you're mad that RFK fired a lady that was part of the Biden administration that helped push this crap. Make it make sense, Lefty. Make it make sense. But I digress. I'll let Robert F.K. Jr. give his thoughts and his response to the situation at hand. Let's take a look.
Secretary, the CDC director was fired after refusing to resign as her lawyers accuse you, sir, of putting millions of American lives at risk as a CDC vaccine chief slammed in a resignation post. What are your thoughts on that, sir?
Well, I'm not going to comment. It would be inappropriate for me to comment on a personnel issue. What I will say is, President Trump has very, very ambitious hopes for CDC right now. The CDC has problems. We saw the misinformation coming out of COVID. They got the testing wrong. They got the social distancing, the masks. The school closures that did so much harm to the American people. Today on CDC's website right now, they list the 10 top advances, the 10 greatest advances in medical science, and one of them is abortion. Another is fluoridation, another is vaccines. So we need to look at the priorities of the agency. If there's really a deeply, deeply embedded, I would say, malaise at the agency. And we need strong leadership that will go in there and that will be able to execute on President Trump's broad ambitions.
And that's not the only thing. From a cultural standpoint, like how you start, like this is what I'm talking about. Like this is what I'm talking about, that I think the left and Democrats, many of them lack substance when they come with their messaging. How can this outrage of this being reckless, it only works if there's some credibility and trust left in these institutions. But I bet you if you poll Americans and ask them, do you trust the medical establishment? I think it's going to come low like the Democrats' popularity low. But I digress. Megyn Kelly had a tweet here that I think I want to reiterate here. These CDC officials actually think we're going to be sad when they repeatedly use the term pregnant people, lament the erasure of trans people, and resign with pronouns while lamenting the lack of science at the CDC. It's a no. Like, make that make sense. This is the guy, one of the guys that resigned in solidarity. I'm formally resigning on my director of National Center of Immunization and Respiratory Disease at the Center of Disease and Control and Prevention, effective today, August 28, 2025, the time of me recording this video. Close of business. I'm happy to stay on 2 weeks to provide transition if requested. Nah. Because like let's look at these people. Like I saw an interesting clip that I want to put up here. Let's look at these people. You think I'm gonna take I'm sorry. You're a representation of what you believe. You think I'm gonna take this guy seriously, knowing this about him? CDC director of National Center of Immunization and Respiratory Disease resigned after the agency director was fired. I don't want to say his name and I don't want to butcher it, was among 3 of the top officials to resign in protest over the CDC director Susan Menorez was fired. I was unable to serve in an environment. I don't want to even finish the quote, but yeah, these are the people that, we're supposed to take our medical advice from. I think it's funny how people expect us to be horrified that a bunch of CDC people are quitting or being fired. I didn't forget COVID. And I think that was the #1 moment that really set credibility and trust in the CDC. Here's RFK again. He's going to respond again. This is more in detail. And I want you guys to pay attention to what he has to say here. Institutional culture. I think that's the key word of this video. The American people do not trust the current state of the CDC due to their current institutional culture. What's their current institutional culture? Seemingly to push science, politicized science, in the benefit of Democrats, leftists, and progressive ideology. That is the current institutional culture of the CDC. Tell me I'm lying. Let me know if I'm lying, guys. Let me know if I'm telling the truth in the comment section, guys. This is one of the reasons why the credibility of these institutions are waning. Washington, D.C., 93% of the people who voted there voted for Kamala Harris, voted for a Democrat. We talk about all the time how these government agencies are overrun by liberals, liberal bias, liberal ideology, and they spread this stuff in all their professions, from journalism to science, politicizing this crap. Always want to use science to back a narrative. And then when reality shows you, right, if you have a theory in reality and reality shows you that your theory is wrong, you must accept that your theory is wrong. These people swear up and down that there was no side effects with the COVID vaccine. And there's some studies to suggest there is side effects. And only now are they willing to admit that, because right now RFK is doing the necessary steps to change the institutional culture in the CDC.
The recent resignations of the CDC, how are you ensuring that that agency is able to do its job effectively?
I would say this, that first of all, I will confirm that we let go Susan Menares yesterday. I'm not going to talk about personnel issues, but the CDC is an agency that is very troubled for a very long time, and anybody who lived through the COVID pandemic and saw all of these bizarre recommendations that were not science-based, all the misinformation, understands that the CDC has on its website today that among the top 10 medical innovations, greatest medical accomplishments in history was abortion. This is one of the greatest medical accomplishments because it keeps small families. Go to the website, look at it. Fluoridation, giving kids a toxin, and vaccines. So there's a lot of trouble at CDC, and it's going to require getting rid of some people over the long term in order for us to change the institutional culture and bring back pride and self-esteem and make that agency the stellar agency that it's always been. I'm very confident in the political staff that we have down there now that they're going to be able to accomplish that and ensure the competent functionality of that agency.
Yeah, like I said, political ideology. F around and find out. CDC leadership pushback on RFK changing vaccine policies, which is his right. People don't trust the current institution. Before RFK became health secretary, before Donald Trump won the 2024 election, was CDC held in a high regard? No. Quick answer, no. People already was being distrustful of the information being fed through that agency. That agency lacked credibility and public trust. And you can't make recommendations, right, without public trust. And in a sincere act, in steps to gain back public trust, RFK is doing the necessary work, the necessary actions to actually gain public trust back, because people wanted him to be health secretary. One of the reasons I honestly believe that Trump won the popular vote is because he had RFK as part of his cabinet, or he promised to have him as part of his cabinet. Today, he revoked the emergency use authorization for COVID vaccines. Also today, the CDC was fired and the CDC vaccine unit director resigned. Get out of the way. Get out of RFK's way. He's on a mission to restore the institutional culture in the CDC. And I don't understand how Democrats message against this. In my honest opinion, the only way you can message against this is by offering a different alternative. The Democrats have to admit that there was concerns about trust with the agency, it being politicized, it being mired in bias, the numerous conflicts of interest being pointed out there. And instead of acknowledging that stuff and try to give an alternative view of how to deal with that stuff, they demonize you, gaslight you, call you anti-science, anti-vaxxer, call you a misinformation person, label you, character assassinate, which they're trying to do with RFK right now, calling him reckless, incompetent. Oh my God, people lost trust in the leadership. The CDC in Atlanta want to protest. Go ahead, protest. But this needs to be done. Status quo is not enough. Status quo it does nothing for the American people. American people actually want an institution that they can trust. And one of the ways to gain back that trust is to clean it up. Get the people out of the way. Get the gatekeepers out of the way. Remove status quo. Add new policies that will actually bring transparency. Doing the same thing over and over and over again, and you expect a different result, CDC? You disagree with his vaccine policies. Okay, give me specifics. Instead of doing these vague words with no meaning behind them, you prove every day how politically captured a lot of these government institutions were, from the Department of Education, from the USAID, pushing left-wing propaganda, left-wing ideology, and corrupting their profession with this bias. And you think people are going to boohoo, whine, and cry over the fact that 3 directors resigned in solidarity? I don't give a damn. Good. The trash is taking itself out. Experts keep getting stuff wrong, time after time after time. When random people online, anonymous people online are getting things more correct than so-called experts who spend supposedly years being trained in this stuff. Make that make sense. The only thing that can explain that is bias. But I digress. Let me know your thoughts and perspective in the comment section below. I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to say. What are your thoughts about RFK firing the CDC director? And is it a win for you? Not a win for you? Skeptical? Not skeptical? Was it reckless? Or about damn time? I'd like to hear your thoughts and perspective in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Please share this video if you feel so inclined. It really does help me out in the algorithm. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.